Dark Age of Camelot is a game that came out in 2001, and I played this game from 2001 till about 2014. And I'm looking forward to getting back into it again. I've been looking for a server that would let me kind of do what I want to do, which is mostly a PvE focus, and there really wasn't a good server for it until I found this server called Uthgard. It's been around since about 2003. And it's not a very popular server. I think there's about 20 to 30 players on at any given time, but we're looking for a classic kind of PvE experience, and this server seemed like it would be a pretty good place to play. And because of the server population, I've decided to play a Necromancer, just so I'm able to actually experience the game in a solo format. And I just feel like I'm going to share this journey with you guys. So here we are on Nukti, our brand new Inconnu disciple. And in this era of the game, you're going to have to start at level 1 as your base class, and then you're going to level up at 5. You're going to be able to become your actual class. So the Disciple is a little special in that it can only become a Necromancer, so you have a lot of your abilities right off the gate, or right out of the gate. So we're going to go on ahead and get going here and summon our Minor Zombie Servant. And the Necromancer back in this era was different than it is now. You actually summoned a pet and all of your actions kind of go through the pet. Whereas now on live, it is when you summon a pet, you become that pet, right? It's a little different. So that's another reason I picked Uthgard, because Eden, I think, now is going into the live version of the Necro, and I really want to experience the classic take on this class. So let's get going. Let's talk to our trainer, see if there's anything he wants us to do. Nope, no quests or anything like that. So let's just get going on killing some mobs. So here's a Scum Toad, and let's see. We're just going to cast this Health Evacuation spell and see what it does. I'm pretty sure it's a life tap spell. And as a shade, I can't do anything, so I just kind of rely on my pet to, he facilitates everything I'm capable of doing. So it's important to keep him alive and safe. And he's able to dispatch that mob pretty easily. So let's keep going. And we want to stick to blues because back in the day, even con mobs were pretty tough. So they would probably kill our pet. But since we have this life tap spell, I think we're going to be able to get back up to full before this mob gets to us. Yeah, close enough. So an interesting thing about this era of the Necromancer too, if I remember correctly, is it was kind of buggy, like the way that it triggered your spells. Like you would queue them up and you could accidentally just spam spells and run out of mana before your pet ever had a chance to cast them. So we need to be really careful with how we're trying to engage with mobs here. But we're in Avalon Marsh, which is it's not quite classic. There's some modern assets, like this guard tower is not classic. I think a lot of the trees and stuff are a little different. The water's obviously Shrouded Isles water. But it still looks good, and I actually really love the aesthetic of Dark Age. I think it's a style that's kind of lost the time that I really do appreciate. So one more mob, and we're going to ding level 2. And let's see what our... So we have Death Sight and Pain working. These are our two class skills that we have available right off the bat. And I don't remember if we're going to be going Death Sight or Servant. I think it's Sight. So let's head over here and have a look at what we're going to do. So we want the one that, oh, I can't even check yet. We want the one that allows us to get our power life tap, power tap spell. But I'm not sure what that is. So training is not really going to help us out right now, because back in the day you didn't have respecs really. I think maybe you got one at 20 and 40, but I can't vouch for that. So we don't want to make mistakes by speccing into the wrong thing. So we're just going to take it easy here and not spec our points and just kill mobs. So regenerate flesh. I think this is me. Yeah, so this is a spell I cast onto the pet, and then whenever he has a free action, he will cast that on himself. So now he's going to start healing himself over time. But you'll notice it had that delay, right? He didn't have a chance to do a free action. It was waiting until he was, cleared of his actions, and then it casted it. So there's a lot of timing that matters. You could easily get your pet killed if you're not paying attention. And we should probably cast it again. Oh, I don't have enough power. Okay, so hopefully he doesn't die here. Because if my pet dies, we will become vulnerable with 1 HP as back as our normal. We'll no longer be a shade basically, and we could just get one shot by the mob, and it's awful. So playing a Necromancer, very powerful class, but it also has a lot of vulnerabilities and downsides. But once you get a little higher level, as long as you don't, pull the wrong things, you're going to be able to just chain kill as many mobs as you could possibly imagine. Like, it's very strong. And that's a part of why I chose this class to record, because I've played a few other classes on Uthgard here, just experimenting, and the downtime is pretty brutal. It's still designed with you having a group in mind, and with there not being enough players, it didn't really feel like it was going to be viable to play, say, a paladin or a reaver up to 50 in any reasonable time frame without enough of a community to group with. It's not to say it's impossible, and I might do it anyway, but I definitely want to start with a class like this that can solo, that can get a lot of resources, and maybe I'll be able to, I'm worried I'm going to die here. Get enough resources to maybe craft some gear for my follow-up characters, so that I'll be able to have a little bit easier of a time soloing something like a Reaver, which is definitely one of my favorite classes in the game. So assuming we don't die here, we're going to need to resummon our pet, because I've just realized he's level 0. Yeah, I'm dead. I think I'm dead. Oh, I got it. Awesome. Oh, it's so nice. I actually got an auto attack off before I died. So our pet was level 0. But we leveled up, like we're level 2, so I think if we summon him again, he would be level 1. So let's actually test that hypothesis real quick. And yes, as a Necro, it takes a long time to cast your pet. Yeah, so he leveled up, so that's actually really important. Like, your level compared to the mob is very important in this game for the 2-hit calculations and how much HP you have and all that stuff, so definitely something to be mindful of. And then whenever we just dinged 3, so I think I'm going to do it again. Release and summon. Let's see if we got a new pet. No, we didn't. But we did get some buffs. And one of the nice things about this era is, like, buffs actually matter a lot. So if you're like farming for gear or whatever, like a lot of gear in this stage of era of the game, I think this is 1.65, it doesn't really have a lot of stats on it, right? Like, it's not like you're going to get something with like plus 10 strength, right? But this buff is giving us 12 to each, 13 dex, 12 strength, so like that's like a full suit of armor equivalent. So we should definitely want to cast these spells and keep our pet more powerful. And they last 20 minutes, so it's definitely worth it to cast. And Glimpse of Fate here reduces the target's AF by 12. Basically, it affects our chance to hit, but I don't think that's going to be worth casting. Let's see if we can tell. So what we're looking for is this something I cast or the pet casts? Yeah, it's something the pet casts. So I don't really think it's worth it. But if it were something that I casted as a shade, then it might be worth it. I am interested in actually experimenting with that. We're going to try on the next mob to pull with the armor factor thing and just see if it makes any difference. Like, we're hitting for 6s and 7s. Maybe we'll hit for 8s and 9s. Maybe it actually is worth it. We'll find out. Something that's interesting about Uthgard is I know that it has a more classic combat formula than something like Eden. From what I understand, they've spent a lot of time trying to recreate it to be as close to classic as possible, which is really cool. Like, I loved what this game was, and it was always kind of disappointing to me that Live changed so much to try to keep people playing it. And I get why they did that. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, it's not a perfect game, and it takes a long time to get 50, and most people just wanted to, PvP, RVR, stuff like that, and that's fine. But the PvE in this game, I actually really enjoyed. I thought it was one of the best games as far as just like logging in and just grinding mobs down. Like I could just do it forever. It's really fun to do that. So again, that's why we're here playing a Necro. So we did get that armor factor buff. We're hitting for 8, 6. I'm not really sure if that is, you know, affecting too much here. It's really hard to tell. And I just feel like if we would have just had another life tap instead, we would have done more damage overall. So probably not worth it to cast, at least if you're not in a group. Now, if we were in a group with like a mercenary and stuff like that, like probably a little bit more useful to spend some time debuffing a mob. So we're just looking for blues at this stage. Once we become a proper necro and train our skills, I think we're going to be able to kill yellows and oranges pretty consistently. So what damage type is this? This is spirit. Let's see if this does bonus damage to undead. I don't quite remember how it all worked. So we do have, okay, we need to run. So we're putting our pet on passive because this bogman aggroed us. And we're just going to head over here to the guards and hopefully they will keep us safe. Help me kill the bogman. Alright, thank you, Guardian Sergeant. Oh, so there's portal scrolls? I don't remember that, but they cost a lot. 10 silver is a lot of money. A horse will cost you 5 silver, and that's gonna, you're gonna have to spend that time on the horse to actually get to where you want to go. So it's kind of interesting. There's a portal scroll. I don't know if that's classic, but to be fair, we are in the middle of nowhere. We are about as far away from town as you could possibly be in Albion, so it's not the worst quality of life thing I've ever seen. So let's go on ahead and get regenerate flesh up as well and make sure we can kill this skeleton. So it's been a while and I don't remember, I don't even know if there's a way to tell, but I think our pet does crush damage. I say that, but seeing him fight the skeleton, he should be getting a bonus if he's doing crush damage, right? Which I don't see that bonus, so maybe it's not crush. I don't actually know how to tell. And it may change as we level up. Like the highest level pet has like a big flaming sword, so like, hey, maybe that does slash or fire. I don't even remember, so we'll just keep an eye out on that. I do remember the undead is very the necromancer is very powerful against undead though, so that's going to be what we're trying to hunt most of the time. Okay, we got some boots that dropped, which doesn't really help too much for us. Something that's interesting about the necromancer is it has, how do you word this? So whenever you summon your pet, it kind of snapshots your stats. So you can equip a full suit of armor that has like tons of plus HP and stuff like that, and summon the pet, and your pet will have all that stats, and then you can swap out another set while you're a shade to have like bonuses to your casting and stuff like that. So the Necromancer, while it's very powerful in PvE, there's a lot of min-maxing you can do with your gear to kind of take it to the extremes, right? And that's kind of what I'm looking for here on this server. Farming gear, maybe crafting gear, just trying to make our character as powerful as it can possibly be, and just experience as much of the game as possible from a solo perspective. Something about me is I really do like playing games with a hardcore mindset. I don't like to die ever. If I die in a game, I usually delete the character. And that's, I don't play hardcore because I think that makes me like a better gamer or anything like that than other people. It's something like that. It's just I really like the gameplay loop of, you play a character, you get it as far as you can, you accumulate wealth and power. It dies, and you use that wealth and knowledge to like make your next character better. I just really find that satisfying. So like here in the beginning, I don't really know what I'm doing. I don't really know where I'm going. If I made another character after this one, I would have a better idea of where to go, where to level. Maybe I could get level 10 twice as fast, right? Like that's fun. For me, anyway. So once we ding level 4, we will summon a new pet and we'll have to find a new place to hunt, I think, because a lot of these things are going to start to be green and not give too much XP. Something interesting about Dark Age, it kind of has that old school mentality of like humanoid mobs drop armor and weapons and these kinds of things. So if we keep hunting skeletons and zombies, it's more likely we will get equipment like these gloves that just dropped. And if you hunt something like a snake, like, well, a snake's not going to have like a sword on it, right? So, you know, that makes sense. And I think equipment sells for more than things like snake scales. So we're definitely going to be keeping an eye out for as many humanoids as possible. So I thought it must be whenever we get level 5 and become a necro proper. There's an ability called Facilitate Pain Working. Whenever you cast that on your pet, it lets it cast spells in combat uninterrupted briefly. And depending on your dexterity, you can get maybe 2 spells, maybe 3 if you have really high dex. So that's a really useful ability for the necro. But interestingly, back in the day, and assumingly here, the ability was pretty buggy. Like, similar to casting this spell on my pet, and you'll notice it waits until he has a free action. Like, Facilitate Pain Working was, you know, the same way, and it was very easy to mistime it and just get nothing out of it. So we're going to have to be paying very close attention to trying to time all these things to work out. But that's part of the fun, and that's why I'm excited to play this classic retro Necromancer and just see, like, you know, is it how I remember the class being? You know, did they do a pretty good job on it? Like, we'll see. It was definitely one of the more difficult to understand classes, I guess, back in the day, because it was just weird. I mean, there was nothing else really like it, you know. The Shrouded Isles classes were really cool and creative, and the Necromancer is one of those classes. So this will ding us to 4 if he kills him. I believe in you, buddy. Yeah, there we go. That's lizard foot amulet. That's just trash. So let's see what we got. So we got a new pet. Awesome. And a new life tap spell. So we're going to go from 5 damage to 17. Like, it's a giant upgrade in the damage, but the power cost only goes up by 1. So it's just getting so much more efficient already for us to be able to engage with mobs. So I see a yellow frog over there. There's a blue con bogman. And you know what? I think it makes sense. So we're going to be playing Death Sight. That's the spec. And even though we're not going to be able to get new skills yet until we become a necro, we can spec into it. And what that's going to do is, the way this game worked, you had like a min value and a max value of the damage you could do, and that max value was kind of modified. The min and the max value were modified by your stat. So like when we go here and we train, if we train 4 in Death Sight, that's going to make us hit harder in the upper bounds of the damage more consistently, if that makes sense. So if for some reason Death Servant, this spec, had some offensive spells, it wouldn't do as much value as the Death Sight, since I'm speccing into that, if that makes sense. So it actually does affect pretty much everything. So like these buffs, they're not going to give the full value, I don't think, since we're not specced into it. I believe it's that way. So it's something to keep in mind with your specs. Like, you might want to, you know, split your spec a little bit to get more value out of all your tools. And we'll definitely experiment with that as we go on. So yeah, you can see I just 3-shot this guy, which is really good, but it took a lot of power. At level 5, our class is going to change a lot, because instead of life tap spell, we get a spell that taps power. So whenever we spend some power, we tap it back, and, you know, we can just keep going because we're never running out of, you know, mana. So let's just clear up this trash here. Yeah, because I want to kill these decayed zombies and the bogman. Because blue cons are going to be giving the best bang for our buck in terms of XP for now. Yeah, let's loop around. I don't think these things are going to aggro me, so we're just going to try to get a better position. Do these aggro? No? Okay. So a lot of spells that we have as a necro are going to do bonus damage to undead. It's kind of determined by the, like, I don't want to say it's a rock, paper, scissors game, because there's a lot. Like, you know, you can see thrust, crush, slash, and then all these, like, spell types. But there's definitely a lot of, like, strategy to, like, oh, you do, like, body damage. Like, let's find mobs that are weak to body damage, right? Or, like, oh, you're a crush player, like, go fight skeletons, you know, that kind of thing. So we definitely want to keep an eye out for mobs that we do bonus damage against, like this. We're doing +7, like, that's a massive amount of damage increase compared to the bogman. Like, let's test it. Oh, I'm out of mana, so we'll have to wait. But we're very close to 5 already, and once we become 5, we're going to be getting just a lot more powerful, and the character is going to very quickly level up, I believe. Something that's interesting about this server is I don't believe Shrouded Isles exist. We have the Shrouded Isles class in the Necro, but the actual zone of, you know, Avalon or whatever, like, doesn't exist. So we're going to have to be playing in these classic zones. And, you know, I'm really not sure why it doesn't exist. I remember, like, maybe a decade ago, they said they were really close, and, you know, it was something to be able to play soon, you know, purely as it was back then, and all the quests and everything, and, you know, for, oh my god, that crit, I just did double damage. But for some reason, it's just not a thing that exists, so, you know, maybe there's just not enough players for them to justify working on it. I totally understand that. Like, that's fair. But hey, I like this classic experience of grinding mobs and stuff. Like, so I'm gonna play it regardless. I don't care if it's popular or not. Like, if it's fun, do it, right? And, you know, maybe somebody out there will see this video and decide, hey, that looks fun, I'll go play there. Like, why not? So we're out of power, but we only need like 1 kill to ding, so let's just get a little bit here, and then we'll kill the first, like, zombie or whatever we find. Yep, there's one over there, just getting a little bit of power. I don't actually know where my trainer is. I believe he's in Aberdard's retreat, but I can't say for sure. So we'll have to go on a little adventure. Alright, so this will do it. So I actually played a Reaver to level 5, and it took about an hour. Not because, like, ding 5, by the way, but not because it was, like, you know, the game's actually that slow. It's because the Reaver is, like, really hard to level, because you don't want to spend your points until you hit 5, because you don't have access to your chain weapons or your spells, and if you spent the points elsewhere, like, it's not going to be, like, useful to your long-term growth, right? So you just have to not spec at all, and it was pretty brutal. Alright, so making our way back to town, we're going to see if we can't find our trainer and become a proper Necromancer, which will give us access to a lot of new skills. God, Dark Age really is a beautiful game to me. Okay, so this guy's telling us to go to Camelot, but we're not going to do that. A lot of these really out of the way places usually have class trainers, because it would be totally unfair to expect you to actually farm up 5 silver and take a horse all the way to Camelot. Yeah, so there's the retreat, and I think the Necro Trainer is like up in one of these turrets, but I don't honestly remember. But that's kind of what makes it fun. We're on an adventure. Let's see what we can find. So as somebody who's been developing a game personally for a very long time, like it's really cool to like see a lot of the little details, you know, for how they did stuff. Like this water like is glitching is like really funny to me, and just the way they did their lighting. Like there's a lot of like emissive lighting in this game that like makes things look a little weird sometimes. But you know, they didn't really have proper light models in a lot of instances, and like the shadows just like a little plane. It's really interesting. Is that guy just hovering? That's hilarious. Never seen that before. Yeah, whenever they like remodeled a lot of these like old assets, like this one, they kept the old collision, and it's really noticeable in some places. Is that it? No, that's the Theurgist class, which is a very cool class. Necro. There we go. Do you desire to join the Temple of Aran and defend our realm as a Necromancer? Lord Aran has accepted you into his temple. Here's his gift to you. Use it well, disciple. So we got the Necromancer staff, which is going to give us focus up to level 4 for our spells. And what that means is any spell up to level 4 is going to cost less power. Okay, so we trained in Death Sight, and here's the new spells that we have access to. So we have the Power Vacuum line, which transfers some power from the target to me, and I just fell really far. Let's get that on the hotbar. Oh yeah, another thing about the Necro is if you get too far away from your pet, it'll dismiss, and then you'll be left in that vulnerable state and die. So gotta be very careful with pathing. We also have the ability to transfer power from the caster to another target, but without other players, that's not really going to be a thing. And then this spell, this is one that I as a Shade cast, and it will do some damage to the enemy and heal the pet for some percentage of that some damage, which is really cool. Like you can pull with this Power Vacuum spell. You're like regaining power as you do so, and then you can start spamming life tap in combat. And we're going to demonstrate that here in a moment. I'm going to resummon my pet and buff him up, and then we're just going to kind of, oh, here's facilitate pain working. We definitely want that on the bar. Here is a snare. Snares in this game are really interesting because they are broken upon taking damage. So it's definitely something you want to do in a situation where you want to like hit it and then run away. Where did that rotworm go? Or whatever it was. I thought I saw like a yellow con mob. Oh, there he is. So let's give this a proper go. We're going to pull with Power Vacuum. You can see our power shoots back up to full. And now we're going to start casting our life tap spell, Cry of the Dead. And our pet's HP is going to start shooting back up. And you can pair that with Regenerate Blood. And we just killed a yellow con, no problem. Got some worm skin, whatever that might be. And you can just keep doing this. I'm going to just show it on a yellow, or a green con. Like, we're basically ready to go. Again, just fight a full mob, no problem. So the Necromancer, very powerful class, very fast class. It's going to allow us to experience a lot of the game very quickly, and you know, get relatively high level, farm up some money, and start crafting and getting the ability on this server to gear up another character, which is pretty cool. We actually dropped a Bone Charm amulet, and that's something that's really cool about this era of the game. So later on in this game's life, in 1.65, there was a lot of ROG items, ROG items, random object generated items, and those were like items with random stats. So it's a complicated system I might talk about a little later, but in this era you did not have those items dropping. At least not in classic zones. Like you may have had them in the frontiers. It's been a while, I don't remember. So all the items that drop are like designed by the developers. So like they're pretty shit. Like you don't get good stats, right? So like buffs and matter a lot. And then whenever you find a really good item, like it feels really good to get. Like I really liked the way the item system felt in this game. And then with something like Darkness Falls, like you could actually farm seals and like actually get a piece of gear that like actually had stats and was good, and like it felt really good to do that. So pretty excited to engage with the gear progression system on this server as it once was on live. And that's something that's weird. Like the live servers never did like a classic experience. Like they kind of did in like 2006 or 7, something like that. I don't remember if it was called Origin or what, but we did have a server that was like pre-TOA or something like that, and it didn't last forever. It was something I think they eventually merged into the rest of the servers, but again, it was not truly classic. And I think a part of the reason for that is that a lot of the code has just been lost. Like they just overwrote a lot of things as time went on. They just kept adding on top of and overwriting, and it's probably actually lost the time. And that's why I think Uthgard is a really cool server, really cool experience, because it's as close as they can get it. Like you just can't get this experience anywhere else. And I know it's not for everybody. I know people don't love like slow grindy games, but I definitely do. And there's definitely some other people out there who enjoy it as well. In my experience playing on the server briefly, I've actually seen other players running around, which has been pretty something I didn't expect, right? Like when there's like 10 people on your realm and you actually see them out there playing, it's like, oh wow, like yeah, maybe you could actually get a group eventually with the right kind of people online. So all right, well, I'm going to call this a video here, just showing out the very beginnings of the Necromancer's experience. Hopefully you've enjoyed it, and hopefully I will see you guys in the next one. So take care and goodbye.